Hey everyone, today on the Hobby Grotto, I'm going to show you an experiment I did with one color highlights. What do I mean by that? Let's check it out. Now I've already got the miniature base coated and shaded, but I'm going to quickly reapply these colors so you can see what we're working with here. This is also going to give us a more consistent base to build these highlights, and I've tried to pick an interesting array of colors to see how this one color highlight works. Generally, I would use a color like white for mixing highlights, but white as a color can sometimes make stuff look a little bit washed out. So in my quest to find a universal highlight color, I've chosen to use Kislev Flesh because it's a nice light color, but it's also got some warmth and a yellowy tone that I think is going to work perfectly with a wide range of colors. For each of the colours, I've mixed up some successive tones with the Kislev Flesh, starting with the Ahriman blue, and I'm just going to slowly work these up on the model, starting with a base layer with fairly good coverage, and moving up to more minimal highlights. I already love how this Kislev Flesh is mixing with the blue, and one of the main ideas with using one colour like this for all the highlights is not just for ease, but it's also going to give the whole model a subtle, consistent tone, like all these colours are existing in the same light source or the same universe. As you move up through the highlights here, the blue is getting this lovely warm tone to it, which I'm very impressed with. A little while back, I used this similar combination of Ahriman and Kislev to paint some blue-skinned Kyric acolytes, so I was very interested in trying it out on a non-skin surface. Very nice. So this is how I've mixed the Screamer Pink highlights. These areas are smaller on the model, so I'm probably not going to do as many highlights. You've always got to be careful with highlights and mixing, because if you get too carried away, you can change the original colour too much. It's always good to work out what your midpoint of colour is and not stray from that too much. Unless you want to go, more into the pastel tones or lighter shades, sometimes when you're highlighting, you might see the colour moving into a tone that might work better. So there's nothing wrong with going with a new idea during the process. For the purple, I've again mixed up a couple of different shades of Nagarroth Night with the Kislev Flesh, and I'm going to start applying these now. I've just mixed these visually, so the numbers are just a guideline. When mixing colours like this, I find it's best to have them all on the palette so you can see the progression and make any adjustments if any of the jumps are too extreme. One of the benefits of a wet palette is particularly when you're doing work like this with a bunch of mixed colours, because everything is going to be there in case you need to reapply some of the previous tones or mix up some more subtle transitions. Very happy with how this is all turning out with the Kislev Flesh. It's definitely keeping the colours richer than with white mixes. Each of these colours I'm highlighting to completion too, so you can see the full effect, though generally when I'm painting I leave all the final highlights to last, just in case I make a mistake or get a bit of paint on something. It's a bit more devastating when you have all those final highlights, edge highlights painted on, Now we all knew that Kislev Flesh would work, nicely with the Rhinox hide to create some highlights for the skin. I'm keeping these fairly dark overall because I don't want to lighten the skin too much, and the reason I went with Rhinox for a darker skin tone is because light skin just seemed like a bit of a cop-out when using something like Kislev Flesh for the highlights, so hopefully this has made it a bit more interesting. The other good thing about dark skin is it changes the contrast on your model, so that's another thing to think about. I've mixed up a few shades of grey here to highlight the black. It's just Abaddon black and Kislev Flesh. The black areas were going to be the biggest problem with the Kislev Flesh in my mind, but it's actually worked really nicely. Kislev Flesh might truly be the one paint to rule them all. As always with black, I'm keeping the highlights fairly minimal, but I'm actually surprised with how well the Kislev Flesh has worked with all these colours I've pretty much randomly chosen. I also painted the lenses on the mask in a traditional gem style using the colours I already had on the palette, and a tiny dot of Kislev Flesh to simulate the shine, just to keep everything in theme here. So there you have one colour highlights, a fun technique to try, and it might even save you buying some paints. Thanks for watching. Why don't you check out some of these other videos, and we'll see you next time on the Hobby Grotto.